Good afternoon and thank you for joining us at this time. You're watching news analysis live on Politics and Business TV. The top stories. Talks underway between federal government and the World Bank to complete the processes of obtaining over $1 billion loan. Nigeria Data Protection Commission (NDPC) investigates alleged unauthorized access to the personal data of enrollees by the National Identity Management Commission (NIMC). Members of the Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities and Non-Academic Staff Union begins a nationwide strike over alleged unfair treatment and disparity in the payment of salaries by the federal government. Details coming up shortly. Welcome back. I am Omoefe Peace of Semer. Now let's begin with the federal government, of course, which is reportedly in talks with the World Bank to complete the processes of obtaining over $1 billion loans to address the challenges facing internally displaced persons and their host communities, as well as bolster rural access and agricultural marketing in the country. According to media reports, the request is contained in World Bank documents titled Solutions for the Internally Displaced and Host Communities Project and Rural Access and Agricultural Marketing Project Scale Up. While the IDP loan is put at $500 million, the Rural Access and Agricultural Marketing Project loan is estimated at $550 million. Some of the World Bank loans that are being currently addressed by the Global Bank have reportedly been initiated under the previous administration of President Muhammadu Buhari. According to the documents provided on the bank's website, the IDP initiative is meant to improve access to resilient and inclusive basic services and economic opportunities for IDPs and their host communities in displacement-affected local government areas in the northern part of the country. We head on now to the Niger Delta, where the Nigerian military has deployed armored vehicles to Bomadi, headquarters of Bomadi Council, over the killing of military personnel on peace and rescue mission in Okwama community in Ughelli South local government area of Delta State. The military personnel and no fewer than 3 armored vehicles were reportedly seen zooming across the Bomadi Bridge late yesterday. Now, this is just as President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who condemned the attacks, also ordered the military high command to fish out those who killed the military officers. In the same vein, Governor of Delta State, Sheriff Oboroweri, condemned the killing of the officers and soldiers, describing it as despicable and alien to the culture of Deltans. However, soldiers deployed to Okwama community in Ughelli South local government area of Delta State have continued raising more houses in the community. And according to a media report, the military are currently occupying Okwama and that several houses had either been razed or demolished. Away from the Niger Delta now, the federal government has provided clarifications regarding the recent Memorandum of Understanding between the Ministry of Transportation and MPH Rail Development Limited, a construction firm from the United Kingdom. According to the government, the arrangement is not considered binding, or the agreement is not considered binding. Well, this is coming on the heels of recent reports stating that the federal government may have entered into a Memorandum of Understanding with an unknown company. There have been fears that the partnership would bring about another P&ID saga. However, the ministry, while providing clarifications in a statement signed by the ministry's Director of Press and Public Relations, Olujimi Oyetomi, said the MOU signed only provides a platform for further engagement, discussion, scrutiny, and the provision of required guarantees by the parties to reach an agreement if the parties are satisfied. The Nigeria Data Protection Commission (NDPC) says it will investigate the alleged unauthorized access to the personal data of enrollees by the National Identity Management Commission (NIMC). This was disclosed by the NDPC National Commissioner, Dr. Vincent Olatunji, in a statement signed by Head of Legal Enforcement and Regulations of NDPC, Babatunde Bamigboe. According to media reports, Olatunji recalled that the NDPC had been engaging with the NIMC on fostering data protection adequacy and consequently had a workshop in the month of February. Olatunji further noted that those who were found culpable of violating the Nigeria Data Protection Act 2023 will be brought to justice. Right, you're watching News Analysis live on Politics and Business TV. Still to come, Nigeria's inflation rate rose to 31.70% in February from 29.90% recorded in January 2024. But the renewed onslaught by insurgents in recent weeks has left Nigerians in doubt on whether there would be a peak in food production, as some economists think this would be able to tame the accelerating inflation in the country. An economist, Dr. Aliyu Elias, will be joining us in a moment to discuss this, and we'll also bring you details of other stories after this break. Do join us again. Right, welcome back from that break. You're watching News Analysis live on Politics and Business TV. Members of the Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities, the Non-Academic Staff Union, have begun a nationwide strike today, Monday, over alleged unfair treatment and disparity in the payment of salaries by the federal government. The unions had last week, Monday, threatened to shut down hostels and power supply in universities across the country if the federal government fails to meet its demands before today, March 18th. 2024. National President of SANU, Muhammad Ibrahim, said his members, including vice chancellors, registrars and bursars, have not been paid 2022 arrears. But according to media reports, the Minister for Education, Professor Tahir Maman, said he was unaware of the planned strike. However, SANU President stressed that the unions would go back to their toolbox and decide the next line of action should the federal government fail to heed the union's demands after the 7-day warning strike, which commenced today. We head on now to the southeast, as the Anambra State Governor Chukwuma Soludo has posited Nigeria's biting economic situation as an inevitable phase for the betterment of the nation. Soludo, who stated this while reacting to the accelerating inflation rate, stressed that this was a phase needed before the country begins to flourish. Soludo, who just marked his second year in office, also spoke about his achievements since 2022, adding that his government has created jobs for the masses. Terrorists yesterday night kidnapped 87 people after launching a fresh attack on the Kajuru Station community in Kajuru local government area of Kaduna State. According to media reports, members of the Kajuru Station youth, Harisu Dari, who confirmed the incident, said the terrorists also broke into some shops and stole food items and other valuables. He said they invaded the village around 10 p.m. and the attack came barely 2 days after 15 women and a man were abducted in the Dogon Noma community of the same local government. Kajuru and Chikon local government areas had in the past 2 weeks become the hotbed of kidnapping, causing tension in the state. And Nigeria's inflation rate rose to 31.70% in February from 29.90% recorded in January 2024. The National Bureau of Statistics stated this in its latest CPI and inflation report, which was released last week Friday. This figure, according to NBS, indicates an increase of 1.80%. The latest inflationary surge is despite tightened monetary policy by the central bank. I recall that the CBN governor at the last MPC meeting attributed the inflationary trend to non-monetary factors such as persistent insecurity and infrastructural deficit. In the meantime, the renewed onslaught by insurgents in recent weeks casts doubts on whether there would be a peak in food production, as some economists think this would be able to address the issue or tame the accelerating inflation in the country. On News Analysis today, an economist, Dr. Aliyu Elias, joins us to discuss the possible link between inflation and insecurity in Nigeria. That conversation will begin in earnest after this quick break. Please join us again. Welcome back from that break. If you are just joining us, this is News Analysis live on Politics and Business TV. I have my guest already who's joining us live via telephone this Monday afternoon, Aliyu Ilyas. Thank you so much for joining us and good afternoon to you. Dr. Aliyu, are you there? Good afternoon to you, Doc. Hello. All right, I'm afraid we just have to take another break. I mean, we're making efforts to link up with. Okay, Dr. Aliyu Ilyas, good afternoon to you. Hello.
Yeah.
Good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
All right, so much has been going on, with regards to the economy and also, the harsh reality, on ground. Taking a lead from the comments made by the CBN governor, that the inflationary trend in the country is driven largely by insecurity and infrastructural deficits. You recall that these were the comments the CBN governor actually made during the last MPC meeting. Now, the question would be, what is the possible link between inflation and insecurity?
The question would be...
Yes, the question I'm asking now is, what is the possible link between inflation and insecurity? We understand that, the inflation has already, seen a surge again. But then, taking a lead from the comments made by the CBN governor at the last MPC meeting, where he said the inflationary trend in the country is driven largely by insecurity and infrastructural deficits. That actually brings about the question as to the possible link between insecurity and inflation.
Right. Thank you for having me. And the fact remains that you cannot take away insecurity from the challenge that Nigeria is currently facing, because one of our inflationary problem is much more legacy problem or structural problem. Because if you look at the major drivers of the inflation, it is food driven inflation. In fact, if you look at the food inflation is about 37%, while the average inflation is about 31%. And it is quite understandable that most of where we get our food from are suffering from volatility of insurgency, kidnapping, and other vices around that side. So I think if we can really tame the insecurity to an extent, that would have been a better solution to Nigeria inflationary challenges.
Right. Since we know that insecurity has been, a major factor triggering, the rate of inflation in the country, which in other, news impacts the economy negatively, what would you say is the reason why it has become quite difficult for the government to decisively address this thing called insecurity?
All right. I think the Nigerian government need to go beyond the kinetic to non-kinetic approach, because you cannot continue to use one method to approach a case where you still don't have a good result. So for me, I think we need to engage traditional rulers, we need to also engage the community, and that's where the idea of state policing also will come in. Because if you approach traditional rulers and have state police, you are going to mean that it will be tame. How do I mean? In my community, if the security man notices that this person has not been in part of this area, been into this area before, they will approach the person that, who do you want to see? How do you get to hear? There will be a better word for perhaps if such person also know that you will be query what is looking for, and there will not be such a problem of security if you can go that route. However, we also need to equip our Nigerian police that it one now to be much more sophisticated. Life has gone beyond the manual approach. You see that the recent kidnapping that happens at in Kaduna, the thing is, if you had a good satellite set up to where, because we got to know that they walk for like 1 hour, so into the deep forest, and they would have been sighted from the up and get to know from satellite and get to know where they are and know how to approach them. So I think government needs to do more beyond the rhetorics.
Well, let me ask you, Aliyu, is hunger and poverty the reason why insecurity has lingered in the country?
Well, I wouldn't want to agree with that because if you say it's poverty wouldn't allow you to go and be kidnapping, but hunger wouldn't push you to go and be stealing. I think that's not correct. Though we have to change our orientation so well to know that there's a big difference between poverty, hunger, and also committing crime. So I think a criminal is a criminal no matter what. There shouldn't be excuse that it is caused by poverty.
Now, coming back to, the crux of the matter, the upward trend of inflation in the country seems to counter the earlier projections by the CBN and IMF. Early this year, the CBN had actually said that the inflation rate would drop by 21 or drop to 21%, and the IMF also projected that the inflation rate would drop to 23%. Now, what we have on ground, the reality on ground is obviously, countering these earlier projections. What exactly are your thoughts on this?
You recall that there was a time I was in your office, when I was there, I actually made mention of that government is too ambitious to say that they are expecting inflation at 21%, and that's where they are doing the pedestal they are doing the budget. I think that's quite wrong. The reality is that the inflation is not at 1%. And when we have 1% inflation as of February, that's simply, and if you look at the trajectory of the inflation, so you see that the increase in food and other things keeps increasing. It's not low, that it's not going down. So that simply means they are over ambitious. So I don't think we can get to that level.
Earlier you said the level of insecurity in the country is the reason why we've been, having this record of accelerated, inflation rate in the country. But again, you beat it down to the spike in the prices of foodstuff and other essentials. This equally triggered, the inflation rate in the month of February to 31%. But do you see an end in sight to this trend where prices of foodstuff, keep skyrocketing?
Right. We see an any government does the right thing because the problem of the economy still persists. For me, I think government needs to do more on what we call food supply chain, because if there is no proper intentional food supply chain for you, President Tinubu also declare emergency on food security. But it should go beyond declaration. There should be a step-by-step management of the food supply chain. If you produce food in Kebbi, then just for you to move that produce down to Anambra, down to Lagos and what have you. You also know that the cost implication is the problem. So the problem is not how to produce now. It is how the produce will even get to the buyer. Remember, we have seriously energy costs. Now, the cost of selling items is now much more factor on the cost of transportation. So it is
all right. Ali, are you there? Are you there? Hello.
Pardon?
Okay. Yes. Real quick, just to wrap up the conversation, Aliyu, what is the implication of this, report on the economy in the days to come, and also the overall well-being of Nigerians?
What I think more now is that government should find a way of increasing people's purchasing power. And I'm not a proponent of sharing 15,000 but 5,000 because if you share money to civil servants, how many are they? They are not up to 10 million. And we have about 150 million Nigerians that are at that level. So for me, I think government should do more in terms of creating creating more security, and also finding a way to rebalance the issue of forex by doing much more, encouraging more exportation, and also this our refinery. I think if the refinery is working, there will be low pressure on forex. So I think these are some of the things that the government should put in place to ensure purchasing power actually increase as expected.
But are you optimistic that, you know, the mass food distribution plans or effort by the federal government would be able to at least, you know, alleviate the level of hardship in the country at the moment?
Well, I wouldn't say so, because the same problem that made us to get to where we are has not been solved. So I don't see an end in sight for that.
All right, thank you so much for talking to us. Aliyu Elias is an economist, and he joined us live via telephone this afternoon to discuss the possible link between rising inflation and insecurity in the country. Well, that's it for our news analysis today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back in a moment with the news update. Good afternoon.